In this video, we're going to talk about writing equations of ellipses. We have graphed ellipses, now we're going to talk about writing equations. So if you remember, the standard form for the equation of an ellipse with the center HK is x minus, ooh, that's strange. Let's fix that. Go away. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared over, when it's horizontal, A is bigger, so A is underneath the X and B is underneath the Y, equals 1. And then if it's vertical, it's X minus H squared plus Y minus K squared equals 1. And A is now under the Y and B is now under the X. And remember, A is the distance from the center to the vertices, or your major axis, and B is the distance from the center to the co-vertices, or your minor axis. And you're going to find your foci using c squared equals a squared minus b squared, and a has to be greater than b. So, if we're given the graph, we're going to write an equation, but first we're going to find the center. So the center here is 0, 0. And then I'm going to determine, well, so it's going to be x squared over something plus y squared over something equals 1. And since it's horizontal, that means that the bigger number a will be under the x. So let's figure out what a is. Now let's figure out what b is. So a is 6, and b is 4. So that makes a squared 36 and b squared 16. So I have written it in standard form, but I still need to find the vertices, co-vertices, and foci. So the vertices would be 6, 0, and negative 6, 0, because these are my vertices, which you could do this first. And then my co-vertices are 0, 4, and 0, negative 4. And then my foci are what I need to find. So c squared equals 36 minus 16 gives me 20. So the square root of 20 is about 4.47. So I get 4.470 and then negative 4.470 as my foci. If we want to do number 3, where it's not centered at 0, 0, let's find our center. So my center is 3, negative 6. So that would make my x minus 3 squared plus y plus 6 squared equals 1. And then I have to figure out what a and b are. So a is going to be, it's going to be horizontal, so a will be under the x. So a is 5. That means a squared is 25. And then b is 1. So I can put a 1 or I don't have to. But I need to find my vertices. So since I'm going to add, you can find them on the graph, or you could just do 8, negative 6, and negative 2, negative 6, because when you add 5 and you subtract 5 from your x coordinate, that's what you get. And then to find your co-vertices, you can either find them on the graph, or you could just notice that b is 1, so you add 1 and you subtract 1 to the y coordinate. And then we need to find c, your foci. So 25 minus 1 gives me 24. The square root of 24 is approximately 4.9. Let's make sure. 4.9, just because it rounds better that way. So then I'm going to add this to my x. So negative 3 plus 4.9 is 7.9, negative 6, and then negative 1.9, negative 6 when I subtract it. So given a graph, that is how you do that. But what if I don't give you a graph? What if I just give you information? So let's do the odds, just cause. So if I just give you information, you're gonna find the center, HK. But if you're given the vertices and the co-vertices, you're given the vertices, either the x's or the y's will always be the same, and then the co-vertices, either the x's or the y's. So you can debate on that to figure out your center. Or you can just use the midpoint formula of the vertices or the co-vertices, whichever you find easier. And then we will figure out what A and B are, and then we'll write it in standard form. But if you're given the foci, you need to use the formula c squared equals a squared minus b squared to find our missing part. And we also need to determine if it's vertical or horizontal. So let's find our center. So our center here, so if you notice here, the zeros here are the same and the 8s are what changes. And the zeros here are what change. Stay the same. And then negative 6 and 6 is what changes. So 0, 0 is my center, words. And 8 is bigger than 6, so this is a vertical. It's a vertical ellipse. So if it's vertical, that means A is going to be under the y. So the bigger number will be under the y. And A is going to be, well, since it's vertical, that means the vertices are what we care about. And since our center is 0, 0, we move it 8 because because that's what changes on my vertices. And my code of vertices changed by 6. So b squared is 36, and 8 squared is 64. And then x squared plus y squared, because they are, my center is 0, 0. If you had a hard time noticing that, what I did, feel free to use your midpoint formula, which is x1 plus x2 over 2, y1 plus y2 over 2. That's your midpoint formula. So that's up to you, but just letting you know that you can do that. Right. So if I wanted to find the vertices, write this thing in standard form. Oh, this is your answer. Sorry, I meant to box it in. So I have vertices and co-vertices again. So let's use the midpoint formula this time. So center, just zoom in so we can see it better. So center, let's use the vertices. 5 plus 5 over 2, and then 8 plus negative 6 over 2 gives me 5 and 1. So my center is 5, 1. I need to figure out what A is, and I need to figure out what B is. So vertices, well, it's a vertical one because if I'm looking at my vertices, the y's are what change, so it's vertical. So A is going to be under the y. We could go ahead and put this in as x minus 5 squared plus y minus 1 squared. And then we go between 1 and 8, there is 7. Which gives me a squared is 49. And then for my co-vertices, 1 doesn't change. But between -1 and 5, there is 6. Or 11 and 5, there's 6. So b squared is 36. So you just have to do some basic subtraction or addition, whichever you would prefer. So there's your equation in standard form. This one's a little bit more fun because we are given vertices and foci. All right, but before we do that, let's find the center. Well, before we even do that, let's figure out if it's vertical or horizontal. Well, let's look at our vertices. Well, the -9 and the -9 stay the same, so the x's stay the same, so that means it's vertical. So then we need to find our center. You know, like in yoga when they tell you to find your center, that's what we're doing. We're finding our center. -9 plus -9, I'm sorry, that was a terrible joke, over 2. And then -2 plus -12 over 2 gives me -9 and -7. So that is my center. Look, we found our center. Sorry. X plus 9 squared and then y plus 7 squared. And since it's vertical, the bigger number will still be under the y. And then we need to determine what A is and what C is this time, since we have foci. So between A and our center, so between our vertices and our center, I'm moving 5 units. So A squared is 25. So 25 will go under here, under our y since it's vertical. And then between our foci and our center, so between -3 and -7, I have 4. So that means c squared is 16. But that doesn't go down here under the x because it's c. So all I know is c16 equals 25 minus b squared. And then we're going to solve for b. So 16 minus 25 is -9 equals -b squared. So b squared equals 9. So b is 3. But for the standard form, I only care about b squared. So that would be how you do that if you're given vertices and foci. But if I'm given co-vertices and foci, that's where it becomes fun. So I have foci, so my foci y coordinates don't change. And my co-vertices x's don't change. So that means that it's horizontal. So my center, we can find using our co-vertices because the center is the intersection of your major and your minor axis. So it doesn't matter. 2 plus 2 over 2 divided by 7 plus -9 over 2. So 2 plus 2 over 2 is 2. And -9 plus 7 over 2 is -1. So my center is 2, -1. So then I want to find b, because I have co-vertices this time, rather than vertices. So between -1 and 7, there's 8 units. So that means b squared is 64. And then I want to find c. Between my center and my foci of the x coordinates, there are 6 units between 8 and 2. So that means c squared is 36. So 36 equals a squared minus 64. So 36 plus 64 is 100. Come back. I don't know what happened. So 100 equals a squared. So that means a is 10. Don't know what is happening, guys. I'm sorry. So since it's horizontal, 100 will go under the x minus 2 squared, and then this will be y plus 1 squared over 64. So that is how you find the standard form using given information.